Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Scott Manning coming to you live from Scott Manning YouTube Sports Talk. I want to thank all of my loyal viewers for being with me here tonight. I have a lot to talk about tonight. I have just gotten word that LSU Coach Will Wade has been suspended indefinitely. I will let you know what's going on with that. But we got three very big conference races in college basketball that have yet to be decided. Texas Tech plays Iowa State, and Kansas State faces Oklahoma tomorrow out of the Big 12. It's very simple. Whoever wins it all, or we could have a share in the Big 12 championship. Also, out of the ACC, we got Louisville playing Virginia tomorrow, and we also have Duke, North Carolina, in their final rematch in the rematch of the season. We could possibly have a three-way share in the ACC. I will lay that all out for you tonight. Hey, Fast Break 356. What's up, man? It's good to see you again. And then out of the Big 10, number 7 Michigan, number 9 Michigan State, and also number 11 Purdue and Northwestern. We could also have somebody tomorrow out of the Big 10. Somebody will either share the Big 10 championship or somebody can win it outright tomorrow. I will lay all that out for you tonight. And also, too, we got some strong representation from the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the SEC in the NCAA tournament as the latest bracketology report comes out. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get right to the show, and let's get going. Right at the top of the show, I said LSU men's basketball coach Will Wade has been suspended indefinitely amidst an FBI probe. He had a phone call with business manager Christian Dawkins. Apparently, the FBI intercepted the wiretap, and it was along the lines of Coach Wade saying, "It is hard to get hard college recruiting nowadays." And apparently, there must have been some talk of money. And apparently, that's what led to the whole suspension. LSU President and Chancellor F. King Alexander and Athletic Director Joe Alavia, I think it is. You have to kind of excuse me. My writing, it's kind of hard to pronounce these last names, so bear with me. Apparently, President Chancellor F. King Alexander and Athletic Director Joe Alavia issued a statement today saying amongst the lines of, "Coach Will Wade, thanks, man, I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you for letting me." It happens. Apparently, the chancellor and the athletic director, the president and chancellor and the athletic director today released a statement along the lines of saying, "We are indefinitely suspending Coach Wade for his impermissible benefits." And then we found out about the FBI investigation. We have no choice but to suspend Coach Wade indefinitely. And it's just a very disappointing day. Coach Wade has already said he is committed to his players and his coaches. And he even said that in a statement. And SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey has already said he supports LSU's decision, and there will be no further action on that until we know all the facts in this FBI investigation. So this is just another coach along the lines of many coaches being investigated by the FBI into the college basketball scammers program. I don't know what's going on. They're saying college basketball is becoming a fraud. No. A lot of people know where all the money's at. The money trail, and apparently somebody out of NC State must have got caught today too. Another source is released from NC State is saying that their head coach has accepted $100,000 payment, for crying out loud. But let's not go any further until we know for sure what all the facts are, bottom line. And I'm going to come back later in the show, and I'm going to give you my take on the Coach Will Wade situation. But right now, we have a lot of other stuff I want to talk about, and it's got to be addressed here tonight. And we started out with the Big 12. Number 8 Texas Tech against Iowa State. About 2 months ago, this would have been the hottest ticket in town, anywhere. But right now, Texas Tech is riding an 8-game winning streak, and they're just playing red-hot basketball. Iowa State is struggling down. It's just almost literally limping to the finish line. And think about it, for Texas Tech, they're coming off of a huge 70-51 victory over Texas the other night. Jared Culver had 16 points, Matt Mooney 15 points. And Texas Tech is hoping to avenge the January 16th loss to Iowa State 68-64. I think Texas Tech has a better shot at it, though. Despite, now, also, too, in all fairness, according to the Basketball Power Index, this game is almost a 50-50 split. And that's all there is to it. And like I said, Texas Tech is riding an 8-game winning streak. Iowa State has dropped its last 5 of 7 games, the last 2 by double digits. Just about a couple of months ago, Iowa State was 18-5, and they were 7-3 in conference play. Everybody was thinking they're going to be right into the middle of the Big 12 race. The tables have turned. Iowa State's been struggling all the way to the end. And also, too, Iowa State's coming off of an embarrassing loss, 90-75, over West Virginia. Yeah, and I'd accept it. Yeah, that's a big one, too. I do agree with that all the way, man. I do. Lindell Whittington. And then also, too, if you think about it, what happened last time with Iowa State, when they lost to West Virginia, Lindell Whittington put up 17 points. And also, too, Iowa State was minus Mariel Shayok with a foot injury. Will he be playing against Texas Tech? Will he be playing in that game? There's a big question mark there, too. And think about this, too. Texas Tech their defense has been red hot. They've only allowed 52.8 points per game. And they've only been limited to shooting overall at 36.5% and only 29.6% from beyond the arc. So the Texas Tech defense has been red hot throughout the season, and it showed. And will Texas Tech avenge their loss to Iowa State from January 16th? I say yes, because right now you got Iowa State struggling. They're without Shayok, and you got Texas Tech playing fantastic defense, and there's not much more you can say. So let's just say for this, just hypothetically, if Iowa State pulls off the upset, they can play the role of spoiler. However, there's another team that can play a role of spoiler, and it's Oklahoma. And you think about this, Oklahoma faces Kansas State tomorrow, and that leads me right into the next game I want to talk about. Number 18, Kansas State against Oklahoma. Kansas State, they have been red hot. Kansas State coach Bruce Weber has said, I'm very proud of our team. We play fantastic on the road. And he's absolutely right. Kansas State went 7-2 in Big 12 road games this season. Very impressive. And Kansas State passed the TCU hurdle 64-52. And I'm going to tell you right now, this was a very big day, a very big game that night. Barry Brown Jr., 16 points. Kamal Stokes, 15 points. Oklahoma, however, they're coming off of a huge win over Kansas. 81-68. Christian Doolittle, 24 points, 11 rebounds. He'd only been doing little. 10.9 points per game. Brady Manick, 21 points, 5 rebounds. He'd only been averaging 12 points per game. And Oklahoma, they've got something to play for. If they knock off Kansas State, not only could they play the role of spoiler, they may find themselves getting into the NCAA tournament now. Now, I grant you they have a 19-11 record, and they're only 7-10 in Big 12 play. This was the win they needed. Oklahoma needed this win badly because they were on the bubble of getting into the NCAA tournament. And that's all there was to it. And Kansas State got a big win over Oklahoma, 74-61, back on January 16th. That seems like a long, long, long time ago. But if you look back at the January 16th meeting, Oklahoma, Christian James, 20.7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. Rashad Odoms, 17 points, 4 rebounds. For Kansas State, Barry Brown Jr., 25 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds. Dean Wade, 20 points, 2 rebounds, 2 steals in that game. And this was back on January 16th. A lot has changed since then. Kansas State, they're red hot right now. Oklahoma, they got the signature win they needed. If they beat Kansas State tomorrow, if that happens, Oklahoma may have just gotten them right off the bubble. And you know what? Yeah, that's very true, man. I agree with that all the way. Oklahoma got their inspiration after beating Kansas. And Oklahoma's already played spoiler for the Jayhawks already. They knocked Kansas right out of the Big 12 race. So I look at it like this. So, folks, as far as the Big 12 goes, it's very simple. If Texas Tech and Kansas State both win, they split. If they both lose, they split. If Texas Tech wins and Oklahoma and Kansas State loses, it's just plain and simple. I don't even have to go over the scenarios. It's very simple. And let's think about this too. Well, let's think about Iowa State for a minute. Iowa State, I'm going to go back. I want to talk about Texas Tech and Iowa State just a little bit more. Iowa State, like I said, they've dropped 5 of their last 7 games. At one point, they were right in the middle of the Big 12 race. They were right smack dab in it. Then now all of a sudden, they're limping to the finish line. Mario Shyok, he may not be available. If he's not, Iowa State's in trouble, and that's all there is to it. And as far as Oklahoma goes, they've already played the role of spoiler already, and they could play it again tomorrow against Kansas State. Because think about it, Oklahoma, they're fighting to get into the NCAA tournament. They're fighting to get a better seeding for the Big 12 tournament coming up here in just a few days. And the Big 12 tournament starts, I think, next Tuesday or next Wednesday. And so there's a lot to think about there, too. Bottom line is this. Oklahoma, if they can get one more signature win, I think we could say for sure they're in. They're in the NCAA tournament, no matter what happens. But just to be sure, Oklahoma needs to at least get 2 wins in the Big 12 tournament to kind of help them out a little bit. That would be a help. If they can get all the way to the final, that would be a blessing. If they get all the way to the final and lose it, I think they're still in my opinion. And that's all there is to it. Now, we've talked about the Big 12. Put those off to the side. Let's talk about the ACC. There's a lot to be addressed because the ACC is going to be the one that's going to be the mess. And I'll explain why. We could have a 3-way split atop of the ACC for a 3-way share for the ACC title. And let me explain what I'm talking about. Now, first, let's start it out. Louisville faces number 2 Virginia tomorrow. And Virginia is coming off of a huge 79-53 victory over Syracuse. Kyle Guy had 25 points, DeAndre Hunter 21 points, Ty Jerome 16 points. Virginia has won 7 in a row, and if you remember back on February 23rd, Virginia beat Louisville. Yeah, that's right. Virginia did beat Louisville 64-52. And let's think about this for a minute. Virginia's won 7 in a row, and Coach Tony Bennett has already said, we're just going to play Louisville tomorrow. We're not going to think about anything else. If we can win the ACC outright, that would be a blessing. But what about Louisville? Louisville started out 7-1 in conference play. The streak they had, and they've stumbled down the stretch, they've lost 6 of their last 9 games. And some of those losses could have been preventable. Let's think about this. Dumb mistakes. Do you remember the Louisville game against NC State when Braxton Beverly hit the 3-pointer at the buzzer? When Louisville missed 4 straight free throws went like 0 for 4 and 0 for 5 at the free throw line down the stretch with about a minute to go? That's when it all started. It all started back in January, if you stop and think about it. But Louisville is coming off of a 75-61 victory over Notre Dame. Jordan Alba, 20 points, 11 rebounds in that game. Malik Williams, 16 points, 13 rebounds, a double-double for him. Christian Cunningham, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. And yes, Virginia is looking red hot right now, and they do want revenge. And I'll say this now. This is going to be an interesting ball game to see how everything goes. They know everything's on the line. Virginia, if they win, they could clinch the ACC outright. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But I mean, Louisville, they started 7-1. They started red hot. Then all of a sudden, the dumb mistakes, the bad breaks, the costly mistakes just piled on. And it showed in their last 6, when they lost 6 of their last 9 games. Yes, the Louisville victory over Notre Dame was good, but hee-haw, Notre Dame ain't going nowhere. But let me say this. If Louisville upsets Virginia, it could throw the ACC into a tailspin. And now, let's talk about Duke, North Carolina. That's very true. I agree with that all the way. Now, we got to talk about Duke, North Carolina. And I just got official word, no Zion Williamson. Zion will not be playing. And that just kills them right there. And I'll tell you right now, Duke almost got embarrassed at Cameron Indoor against Wake Forest, and Duke barely survived Wake Forest 71-70. R.J. Barrett, 28 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 block shots. Trey Jones, 13 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals. The Zion factor, he will not be a factor. And that's going to hurt Duke big time. And it hurt them back on February 20th in that 88-72 loss when Zion's shoe broke, literally ripped, and it caused a knee injury for Zion. And he hasn't played since. A lot of people are saying, he's just doing this so he can go to the NBA. No. Zion made a commitment. I would not worry about going pro right now. And I've said this before, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. When you go to play college ball and go play at a place like Duke University, and you make that commitment, you stick with that commitment, even if it means going for 4 years. If you say you're going to go for 4 years, get your degree, that's what you do. Then if you want to go pro later, go pro later. But here's my thing. If I was going to college, and if I was to go play college ball somewhere, I would say I'm going to go for 4 years, get my degree, then if I want to go pro, then I'll go pro. But if I get hurt and I can't play anymore, all the money that I made from playing in the pros, I would take that money and I would go and I would take that safety net and I would take advantage of it. And this one and done rule that the NBA has, it doesn't work. I'm sorry. You go 1 year, then thank you, man. I appreciate that comment dearly. And thank you for understanding where I'm coming from. But let me say this, though. The one and done rule in college basketball does not work. Now the NBA is considering lowering the draft age from 19 to 18. So if you want, and I am on the fence with that. And here's why. Some of these kids that are 18 years old and they want to go to the NBA and go play, if they get hurt, they're screwed. I am not a believer. And at first I was thinking, okay, maybe it's a good idea, but in the long run, and I had to stop and think about this, it doesn't work. And a lot of these kids are going to make a mistake at 18. If they want, these kids that go one and done and go play in the pros, it doesn't work. I'm sorry. I cannot support the NBA's idea of lowering the draft age from 19 to 18. I can't. I just can't do it because I'm a firm believer in education. I believe in it and it works. Think about it. We've had players in the NFL. Craig Krenzel, he played at Ohio State for 4 years. He went pro, it didn't work out. He took the money that he made in the NFL. He owns a car dealership here in Columbus, Ohio. He owns a car dealership. And think about Eddie George, the Heisman Trophy winner. Played in the NFL for 9 years. He retired because of his health was catching up with him. He went from running away from linebackers and defenses to dancing on Broadway. And there's nothing wrong with that. And folks, and ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for getting off the subject about Zion Williamson. I apologize for that, but I just had to let my feelings. It's just my feelings, and I try not to do something like that, but normally I just couldn't help it. But let's get back on the subject before I get too far away. Now, as far as North Carolina goes, they're coming off of a huge 76-66 victory over Boston College the other night. Cameron Johnson, 22 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. Luke May, 17 points, 20 rebounds, 5 assists. Nice night for him, a double-double. Kobe White, 11 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. Kenny Williams, 10 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists in that game. Now, North Carolina's won 6 in a row. Duke has dropped their last two of their 5 games. And also, too, before we found out about the Zion factor in the game, North Carolina coach Roy Williams said, I have told my kids not to worry about the Zion factor. I have just told them. And yeah, North Carolina is a stacked team. Earlier in the season, and I'll say this right now, and I'm glad you said that, because earlier in the season, the big talk was the Duke freshmen. Now it's the UNC seniors that are going to be taking over. Here's the case in point. Back on February 20th, when Zion got hurt, here's what I'm talking about. Back on February 20th, UNC in that game, when they won that game 88-72, 60 of those points for Duke were scored by R.J. Barrett and Cam Reddish. That was it. And for Duke, R.J. Barrett had 33 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists. Cam Reddish, 27 points, 3 block shots. North Carolina, they were just a beast in that game. Luke May, 30 points, 15 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. Cameron Johnson, 26 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. Garrison Brooks, he had a fantastic night that night. 14 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals. The Zion factor, Zion is not going to be a factor in this game. Coach K's had to struggle all season long, has struggled since Zion went out. I mean, they lost to North Carolina that night. They lost to Virginia Tech 77-72 a couple weeks back. And then all of a sudden, they almost get embarrassed by Wake Forest at Cameron Indoor. What can you say? And now, this is where all the confusion comes in. The ACC championship, we could have a 3-way split for the ACC crown. Now, right now, Duke is 14. Virginia and North Carolina are both 15-2. Duke's 14-3. If Virginia beats Louisville, and if Duke beats North Carolina, we will have a 3-way tie atop of the ACC. If Virginia wins, if Virginia and Duke win, Virginia will win the ACC outright. And that is a fact. And it all boils down to this. It all boils down to what happens in the afternoon between Virginia and Louisville. That's all it boils down to. Whoever wins, if Louisville beats Virginia, it's going to be a mess. If Duke beats North Carolina, we will have a 3-way tie atop of the ACC. So just to reiterate one more time, Louisville plays Virginia tomorrow, and that's a big matchup. And I'm going to tell you this. I have not forgot about that February 23rd meeting. And as for it, yeah. And Coach K and Duke, North Carolina, number 2, the second go around, Zion will not be a factor. And I'm going to say this. If Duke loses this game, they're going to have no one to blame but themselves. Don't blame Zion Williamson for his knee injury. And if you want to go after Nike, go after Nike. Because it was Zion's shoe that broke that caused his knee injury. So the ACC is in utter chaos at this moment. And it could be in an utter chaotic state by the time it's all said and done. Oh well, I'll pick that up later. Now, let's move on to the Big Ten. The Big Ten. This is a mess. This is going to be a mess too. Now, Michigan is coming. Now, number 7 Michigan faces number 9 Michigan State tomorrow night at 8 o'clock in prime time. This is a big game for a lot of reasons. And also, too, Michigan is coming off of a huge victory over Maryland, 69-62. Ingus Brazidakis, 21.7 rebounds. Jordan Poole, 12 points, 2 assists, 2 steals. Xavier Simpson, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 10 assists. John Teske, 11 points, 10 rebounds, 2 block shots. And right now, Michigan is red hot. They're 7-3 in their last Big Ten game, in the last 10 games in the Big Ten. But also, too, don't forget, back on February 24th, Michigan State beat Michigan 77-70. So there's something to think about there, too. But what about Michigan State? Michigan State, they're coming off of a huge 91-76 victory over in Nebraska. Kenny Goins, 24 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Matt McQuaid, 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. Aaron Henry, 15 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Xavier Tillman, 11 points, 8 rebounds, 2 block shots. But there are some big names. We got 3 big names, 2 big names that will be absent, and possibly a third one for the rematch. Yeah, man. Hey, good night, man. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. Hey, send this to your friends, will you please? And maybe I can get some more subscribers. I'd appreciate that. You have a good night, man. All right. There are going to be some big names absent from this game. Nick Ward for Michigan State. He will not be available. Have a good night, man. Nick Ward will be absent. Joshua Langford, he's out with a foot injury. Nick Ward, he had hand surgery the other day. So he's not going to be available for this game and possibly for the Big Ten tournament coming up. And Kyle Aherns, he has a back injury. He's day-to-day. This does not float well for Michigan State in the rematch. But let's think about this. But think about it. Think about what happened on February 24th. Michigan State still got the job done over Michigan despite that. Okay, back on February 24th for Michigan State in the first go-around. Cassius Winston, 27 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals. Kenny Goins, 16 points, 11 rebounds. Matt McQuaid, he stepped up. 13 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. Xavier Tillman, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists himself. But for Michigan in that first matchup, Xavier Simpson, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Ingus Brazadakis, 16 points, 9 rebounds. Jordan Poole, 15 points, 2 assists. John Teskey, 10 points, 11 rebounds, 1 block, 1 steal. There's a lot to think about there, too. However, if you think Michigan and Michigan State could settle it amongst themselves, you completely forgot about Purdue. And Purdue is coming off. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I really do appreciate that, man. I really do. Hey, you have a good night. Now, think about this. Purdue is coming off of a bad loss, 73-69 to Minnesota. Carson Edwards, 22 points, 2 rebounds, 2 steals. Ryan Klein, 19 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Nojel Eastern, 12 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. Grady Eford, 13 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal. There's a lot to digest here. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to come down to who wants it the most. But for Northwestern, they're coming off of a big 68-50 victory over Ohio State, and they ended a 10-game skid. Derek Barden, 20 points, 13 rebounds. Vic Law, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks. A.J. Turner, 10 points, 2 assists. But you know what? By the time it's all said and done, I'm going to say this now. Whoever wants the Big Ten is going to have to take it. And I'm going to keep this simple. And this is the most simple scenario I can think of. If Purdue loses to Northwestern, the winner of the Michigan State game will win the Big Ten outright. If Purdue wins, Purdue will share the Big Ten championship with either Michigan or Michigan State. It's that simple. It doesn't get any easier than that, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't get any easier than that. Well, the hard part is who's going to be the teams, which teams are going to step up. You know, the Big 12, it's simple. The ACC, it's a mess. The Big 10, it's somewhat it's an easier formula to figure out who's going to win, who, what, when, and how. But let me tell you something. This is going to be an interesting Saturday tomorrow. And that's all there is to it, folks. And I'm going to say it. Whoever wants it the most. And that's all there is to it. And now, since we're on the lines of the ACC, the Big 10, and the Big 12, and the SEC, all 4 of those conferences have strong representation as it stands right now in the latest bracketology report. And I've been slacking on this for so long, and I do apologize for that. But I'm going to be totally honest with you. It's going to come down to this. A lot is still at stake. And that's all and the bottom line is whoever wants it the most is going to get it. Now let's talk about the bracketology report. And let's start it out with the ACC. Some very strong representation. Virginia, number 1 seed in the East region. Clemson, they're the 12th seed in the East. But right now, Clemson is on the bubble, and they're one of the last 4 in. They've had some struggles during the season. Syracuse, as it stands right now, they're in the 9th seed in the Midwest region. They've had a much better season. Jim Boeheim, I think, as it stands right now, I think Virginia, Syracuse, they're both a lock. Virginia, but as far as Syracuse, I'm going to go ahead and give them a flat line. Because Syracuse, if they can get a strong finish to the ACC season, and if they can go good ways in the ACC tournament, then I think they're in. Virginia Tech, Midwest region, they're a lock. North Carolina, in. Florida State, they could get that 4th spot and get a double bye. I think they're safe. Louisville, no brainer. Louisville, I think they're in, despite the struggles they've had. Duke, number 1 seed in the South region, they're going to be a 1 seed. I'll give them a triple. And for the same thing for Virginia. North Carolina, a double for Florida State, maybe a double for Virginia Tech. NC State, they're the 12th seed in the South region. They're on the bubble. They're one of the last 4 in. NC State, that's the one that's got to go the furthest. NC State's got to get all the way to the ACC tournament semifinal. Get to the semifinal, get to the final. If NC State gets to the ACC final, I think, and even if they win it or lose it, I think they're in. But for right now, I'm going to give them a flat line. Because right now, NC State hasn't really impressed me much. Louisville, I think they're safe. But they've been struggling here too. Started the season red hot, 7-1. They lost 6 of their last 9 games in every which way possible. And as far as Clemson goes, when I said it was the Braxton Beverly 3 with Louisville and NC State, I messed up. That was my fault. That was incorrect information that I gave you. I need to correct myself on that. It was Clemson and NC State in that game. And if Clemson doesn't get into the NCAA tournament, you can point to some of those losses that Clemson has had, some of those mistakes they've made. So right now, I think Clemson is a flat line because they're struggling right now. And that's pretty much the ACC story. Duke, 1 seed in the South region. I want to see how they do against North Carolina tomorrow night and in the ACC tournament. There's a lot to think about there too. Virginia, 1 seed in the East. Virginia wins. They're going to keep that 1 seed. And if they get all the way to win the ACC tournament, it's going to be a very different ball game. Now, let's talk about the Southeast Conference here for a minute. Alabama, out of the SEC. Alabama, they're supposed to be I think someone needs to send them the memo that they're supposed to be a football school. But Alabama is a 12th seed in the East region, and they're on the bubble. They're one of the last 4 in. So I'm going to give them a flat line. Mississippi State, 6th seed in the East region, they're in. Tennessee, number 1 seed in the Midwest region, they play Auburn tomorrow. Depending how they do in the SEC tournament, I'm going to give them a triple check. Auburn, 6th seed in the Midwest region, they're in. Ole Miss, 10th seed in the West. I want to see them. I want to see them win their last game, one of their last 2 games, and go good ways in the SEC tournament. Then I'll give them a shot. LSU, 3 seed in the West region. Will Wade suspension may haunt them, so I'm going to be cautious on that one. Florida, 11th seed in the South region on the bubble, one of the last 4 buys into the field. I'm going to give them a flat line. Kentucky, 2 seed in the South region, they're definitely in. All right. I want to talk about the Big Ten. This is the one that's giving me the most grief, that I lose sleep over at night. Maryland, look what they've done this season. They're the 5 seed in the East region. I think they're in. Michigan State, 2 seed in the East region. They have a chance to either win the Big Ten outright or clinch a share. They're definitely in. Wisconsin, so definitely some great moments. Yes, they are in. Ohio State, this is the one that worries me. Caleb Wilson's suspension has weighed heavily on them. Right now, they're the 11th seed in the Midwest region. They're on the bubble, one of the last 4 buys into the field. I'm going to give them a flat line. Now, by the way, before I forget, Maryland's the 5 seed in the East region. Michigan State, the 2 seed in the East region. Wisconsin, 4 seed in the Midwest region. And now, Minnesota. And Ohio State is the 11th seed in the Midwest region. They're on the bubble, one of the last 4 buys into the field. Minnesota, the 10th seed in the Midwest region. I've got some concerns about that. Richard Pitino and his squad, they've been playing better, but I'm going to give them a flat line because I'm going to say they're in for now, but I'm going to give them a flat line because they're kind of a little too close to the bubble in my opinion. Michigan, 2 seed in the West region. Oh yeah, they're safe. Iowa, another team that worries me. Iowa's dropped 2 in a row to Rutgers and to Wisconsin. Fran McCaffrey had to serve a 2-game suspension for for screaming and cussing at the officials and doing his best Bob Knight impersonation against Ohio State a couple weeks back. So for right now, I'm going to say Iowa's in, but I'm going to give them a flat line considering what I saw in the last 2 games. Purdue, the 3 seed in the South region, they're definitely a lock for the tournament no matter what. They can clinch a share of the Big Ten championship tomorrow with either Michigan or Michigan State. So that's something to think about there too. But I want to go back to the Southeast for a minute. I'm not sure if I mentioned everybody. Alabama, 12 seed in the East region, on the bubble last 4 in. I've given them the flat line. Mississippi State, 6 seed in the East region. I think they're a lock for the tournament. Tennessee, number 1 seed in the Midwest region. They're fighting to keep that 1 spot, to keep that number 1 seed. Auburn, they're a 6 seed in the Midwest region. And they're in my opinion. Ole Miss, 10 seed in the West region. Ole Miss, they're a 10 seed in the West region. I've given them a shot, but I've given them a flat line because they're a little too close to the bubble. LSU, they were the 3 seed in the West region. I'm putting them in the field, but I'm giving them a flat line because of the Will Wade suspension. That worries me a little bit. Florida, they were the 11th seed in the South region. They're on the bubble, one of the last 4 byes. I've been giving them the flat line. Kentucky, they're the 2 seed in the South region. They're trying to get a 1 seed, and they have a chance to do that over the weekend. So keep that in mind. And now, let's talk about the Big 12. This is important. This is a huge one. And this is where it gets very interesting. Let's talk about the Big 12. The Big 12 has 7 teams that are currently locked into the field. Oklahoma, 9th seed in the East region. I'm going to put them in, but I am going to go ahead and give them a flat line. Yes, knocking off Kansas was a big help, but if Oklahoma can knock off Kansas State, and if they can go good ways in the Big 12 tournament, then I'll take out the flat line. Kansas State, they have a shot to either clinch the Big 12 outright or clinch a share tomorrow. They're the 4th seed in the East region. I love their chances. Baylor, the 8th seed in the Midwest region. Baylor's had some struggles down the stretch, so that kind of worries me a little bit, but I think they're going to be safely in. Get a good ways in the Big 12 tournament, then you'll really help your resume. Texas Tech, the 3 seed in the Midwest region. They have a possibility of clinching the Big 12 tomorrow, clinching a share with Kansas State. So Texas Tech is definitely in my opinion. Iowa State, about 2 months ago, I would have said they're safely in. Now I grant you they're the 5 seed in the West region. I'm going to put a check next to them, but I'm going to put a flat line next to them because they've struggled down the stretch. Honestly, if the NCAA tournament were to start tomorrow, Iowa State would not go too far after the way they've been playing the last few weeks. Kansas, the 4th seed in the South region. About 2 months ago, I'm thinking Kansas is going to be on the 1 line. But a horrible road record, 3-6 on the road in Big 12 games this season. But despite that, I think Kansas is in, but I'm going to give them a flat line. I can't believe I'm doing this, folks, but Kansas has struggled down the stretch. Texas, they're the 10th seed in the South region. I'm going to give them a flat line because I want to see the Longhorns go a good ways in the Big 12 tournament. Then I'll give them a shot of being in the field. So it's hard to believe. March Madness is literally around the corner. But I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this now. It's going to come down to who wants it the most. And the bottom line is, you better be ready for a wild Saturday in college basketball. Because come next week, conference tournaments start. Now, some of the lower conferences have already started their tournaments. I do want to let you know that up front. However, I'm focusing more on the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC. That's where the main focus is going to be for me. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for my closing thoughts on this night. And I'm going to go back to the Will Wade story that it broke earlier in the day. LSU Coach Will Wade being suspended indefinitely couldn't have come at the worst possible time. The final game of the regular season in the SEC, the Southeast Conference tournament coming up, and right now LSU is in the middle of a battle with Tennessee for the SEC crown. This suspension couldn't have come at the worst time in the world. You know the FBI has been looking into college basketball and the illegal and the impermissible benefits that some of these players have received or some of their families have received. You know the NCAA is going to investigate this whole thing, and they knew it. Coach Wade should have known better than to go mix up with somebody like that. And I'm going to say this now. If LSU wins the SEC, if they win the SEC regular season crown and win the SEC tournament, I hope it doesn't turn. You guys remember the Fab Five era at Michigan when they had like Chris Webber and all those, and Chris Webber and the Fab Five? They had to take everything down because of everything in the Fab Five era didn't exist because some of those players took over $600,000. That was sickening. And you know what? I would feel so bad for these players, those kids at LSU, who worked so hard to get to this point, to have it taken away because a coach, because their basketball coach wanted to get mixed up with a businessman. The FBI intercepted the wiretap, and the FBI has more than enough evidence. Now I will say this: it's disappointing, and if it's the players that pay for it, it's not right. Will Wade, I think, needs to just resign and be done with it. Because if he tries to coach this team and this cloud's hanging over him, it's going to affect his players. He says he's totally committed to the players despite his suspension. Let's see how committed he is. Now, we don't have all the facts yet, but let's find out first. But I'm going to tell you right now, don't be surprised if Will Wade either resigns or he gets fired after what the FBI found. We'll see what happens with him. Because you know the feds are looking for people. And this is not the way to do it. And it's disappointing. And my heart goes out to the players who trusted him. And it's disappointing all the way around. And there's no other way you can put it. And I'll feel bad. I'll feel bad for those players at LSU who played under him if they win the SEC crown and it gets taken away because of their coach wanting money. That's all there is to it. Bottom line. And I'm not saying anything more further tonight. And that's all I have to say. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here tonight. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Scott Manning. All you have to do is type my name, scroll down, look for this pretty face, click subscribe, and you'll see all the sports videos I have done so far. I will be back at midnight Eastern time. To give you the wrap up for the Saturday in college basketball, and Monday night at about 6 p.m. I'm going to be doing a YouTube college basketball tournament special to get you ready for the Big 10 tournament, the Big 12 tournament, the ACC tournament, and the SEC tournament. Those four big tournaments, and I'm telling you now, either one of those four conferences will have the national champion. That's all there is to it this year. So I'm going to focus on the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC. Those are the four conferences I'm going to be focusing on for my Monday special. So tune in Monday night, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time for the tournament special, and we're going to have a great time there as well. Thank you guys so much for being with me here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Thank you guys so much for being with me here tonight, and God bless. Good night, everybody, and thank you.